Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Monday, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, so that means it's time for me to get really sweaty under these lights and bring you some heartfelt stories and groundbreaking information about music. That's right, it's Infinite Musician Television. I am your host, Dan Weiss, creator of MFile Music Theory and Songwriting, where we're all about helping you gain control of your creative passion and power to help you become the musician you are supposed to be, which is making an impact by creating the music that you hear in your head. So, it is a scorcher. Again, it's 32 degrees Celsius, and that means it's hot in Fahrenheit. I don't know why you haven't just switched to the fucking metric system already. The entire world uses it, and it makes more sense, but I digress. Today, we've got some cool stuff. We're going to be talking to Yanick Allwood. I had a really good chat with him. He plays the keys. He does a little singing, little dance, a little this, a little that, from the amazing Toronto band Afterfunk. We're going to be chatting about performing, and I'm really happy we finally had a conversation about the history and the evolution of funk music, because we're both real big students of that. We're also going to talk a little bit about this mysterious circle of fifths. What is it? What does it mean? Why does it keep stealing my mail? And we're also we've got another record from my record collection we're gonna talk about. But first, let's talk a little bit about the idea of tending to the fires, quote unquote, of your musical passions. So when is the last time you heard a song or saw somebody perform and you felt that urge to pick up the guitar, pick up your instrument, go practice? You know, when was it that something just struck you so hard that you were like, I gotta play music, I have to? It pushes you, it inspires you, it moves you forward. When is the last time you felt that? Truly. If you can't answer that question, you should probably stop what you're doing right now and go find it. Literally, whatever is in your hands, just drop it, pick up some headphones, go down a YouTube rabbit hole until something blows you completely out of the water. Many times in my life, too many to count, music from every conceivable genre has inspired me, like a man possessed, to bolt from wherever I'm sitting and find the nearest guitar, pick it up, and just start playing or do something, or try and figure out what I heard, or just, something triggers something and an idea hits me, and then I gotta go. Sometimes it's a certain lick, or a scale pattern used in a certain way, or a really juicy chord, or even just a feeling that overwhelms you and you need to try and find your own way to recreate that. What inspires you keeps you passionate about what you are doing. Your convictions are rock solid, and your resolve makes your progress effortless. This is a balance that must be kept. Now, little real talk here, but I have suffered from depression most of my life. And if anyone out there knows what that is like, then you understand that seeing your guitar or your instrument on a day when you don't feel like doing anything is painful. Something that brought me so much joy in the past, and I can't bring myself to just pick it up and practice and play. Then the shame spiral starts, and it's bad news. Even without the burden of mental illness or depression or anything, practice fatigue is a real issue with anybody who plays music. And it can be hard to play through the pain or even just the general feeling of, not right now, I can do it later. The thing that has kept me from stopping playing outright has always been discovering new music or rediscovering music I already knew about and maybe kind of forgot about, or I haven't thought about in a long time. And when you find that one song that plugs right into your circuits, it can light you up like the Vegas Strip. And depression and fatigue and malaise, be damned. Cast you into the fires of hell. This reignition of your passion is very important to hold on to. And it should be put into practice regularly. Your musical passion is like a fire. Okay? It needs to be tended to, or it can go out. Stoking the coals, fanning the flames, adding more fuel, these are all things that are necessary for you to keep burning brightly with your creative passion, your creative power, your motivation to create. Taking the time to feed your passion with music is equally important as what you practice. A well-tended fire, burning hot enough, will continue to burn even through a downpour. Don't get discouraged. Get inspired and keep your passion ignited. Now, how do we go about pushing for improvement when we are feeling that low energy? Don't practice. Play instead. You might say, whoa there, crazy man-child. That sounds completely ridiculous. You are an idiot. But work is work. You gotta put in the work if you want to get better. And the basis of that is true, but let me pose a question to you. How much do you love going to work? How much do you enjoy the idea of getting up and doing chores? How much of a bummer is it when you think about how much homework that you had to do? Does this make you excited to do it? Probably not. So differentiating in your own mind between work and play, that is something that our brains have been doing for most of our lives. If you ever have tricked a child into doing chores by making it a game, you know what this is about. And if you're saying, I don't know about that, guess what? You were a kid and somebody manipulated you with the idea of playing a game to do chores, to tidy up, to help them with gardening or yard work or anything. It becomes a game. Or even think about just the idea of turning that kind of work into a game. Suddenly the time goes faster, you're not drudging through the work, and everything changes. So the perception difference between work and play means the difference between doing something begrudgingly and excitedly taking on an activity. This is a fundamental skill. It needs to be understood and it needs to be put into practice to maintain your playing progress consistently. Does this mean don't run scales and practice just noodling without a metronome? Fuck no. Of course not. I'd be a terrible teacher if I recommended that you just fuck around, you know? But keeping the power of perception in mind. What can you do for a practice routine to make it fundamentally change from work to play? So, keeping a topic of the day or a topic of the week in mind can help you maintain focus on improvement. You have a compass point, you have a direction. This is going to permeate into everything you do if you just have that kind of stuck on the wall in front of you and you know to think about it, work on it, work through it. But after doing some basic scales, chord changes to warm up, whatever you do, consider taking what fundamental stuff that you are working on and try making them musical. What a crazy thought. Why not take what you're practicing and make music with it? Why not play it? Try jamming on a new chord type or a weird grip that you figured out on the guitar. Or work on making melodies from a new scale or a mode that you're practicing and focusing on and trying to get more familiar with. This helps get it under your fingers. This helps get it into your ear, into your brain, into your heart. You understand the motions. You understand the emotions that you can conjure with these things when you spend a bit of time using them. It's fun making music. You feel accomplished by doing something like that, and it's practically applying the stuff that you are learning, putting it to use in real situations. So you like playing that song that you love, but you have trouble making yourself just get down to business and practice. By turning your work into play, not only does this remove barriers, but it makes those mental connections take place that signify true learning, true change, and ultimately real growth. All right. So, with that, I'm gonna toss things over to myself from a few days ago and go maybe get a drink of water, put some ice cubes down my back because it's friggin' hot in here. Anyway, enjoy this interview with Yanick from Afterfunk.
All right.
Awesome. Well, it's been an age, but I'm happy to say that here we have the absolutely stupendous Yanick Allwood from the monumental Afterfunk. I love the band. I've always been a fan for probably the entire.
Dude.
It's been a lot of shows I've seen with you guys. I think some of the first ones you guys were playing.
Like
were all
OG
there.
crew, you know,
It's
like OG crew for real.
2011, I think.
Dude, yeah, that's a long time ago, right?
Yeah, but it's awesome that like the bands moved a lot together, and it was very much like a really good friend working relationship, and not just like, oh, let's just like get them to play a show or whatever. And it was like,
we had like a really special thing going on, you know, like it was a really, I don't know, like we inspired each other to do more things. It was like
absolutely
awesome. Like,
well, I remember the first time I met you, I like obviously had to rush the stage and just be like, dude, that was so good. And you were so genuine. And that was like just one of the things that drew me to you. It wasn't such a like, oh, thanks, man. And like, you had just played a fucking crazy set and you had a ton of stuff to tear down and do. And you still had to go back home to Toronto and everything. But you like were genuinely interested to just stop and take like, you were wowed that someone liked the music and you were like, thank you. Yeah. And you were so energized by it. I was like, I love this guy.
Dude, it's such a nice thing though, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just like, you know, sharing, I guess, like a piece of yourself with other people. It is.
It is.
And then other people connect with it, you know, like that's just great. You know about that.
It's very, it's funny because it's like, it's personal, but there's also like the show element where you kind of have to compartmentalize and leave some of it on the stage or almost like leave a suit on stage that you step into.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so that like that's your show and you do it and you put it out. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons I learned like through performing was there kind of has to be that a little bit separate.
Yeah, it's true.
Sometimes you start to lose like you're supposed to be on all the time. You're supposed to do this. And it's like, that's that guy.
Exactly.
That's his job.
You know what I mean? It's like theater almost, you know what I mean? Like an absurd, like weird pop theater, but that's kind of what it is. You know what I mean? We're performing it. And like, it doesn't mean that it's not genuine because art, you know, but like it is also like a blown up, a bigger version of whatever it is that you are trying to do. You know what I mean? It's like a very like over exaggerated personality that has to take the stage or else the stage will swallow you.
Well, it's at minimum, you'll probably like 30 minutes, like 45 minutes to get literally the best parts of you out.
Yeah. Dude, sometimes even like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I like after we did all this Afterfunk stuff and like I started to like I've been doing like a little bit of like keyboard gigging, you know what I mean, just like by myself and like doing some stuff for other artists. It's funny because like there's a lot more singer songwriter shows where like, you know, they go and like singers will go and they sing to a track or they sing guitar with their guitar and it's like 8 people in a night and it's like 20 minutes each. You know what I mean? And you have to do your thing. You have like that's a hard thing, but like that's a show. Like that's another type of show.
It is,
like, I haven't been going to that many shows, admittedly, like throughout my entire life. You know what I mean? I've only been to like a handful, really. And I feel like now I kind of want to see what's going on. Like, I mean, like now there's no.
You know what I mean? Man.
I'm like, now's the time, dude. Now we gotta see what people are. But you know what I mean? It's like there's so many different types of shows like than I was aware of. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like it's interesting, like to see like in different genres of music how long people are expected to play. Because like in the jam scene, you know. Even opening bands are expected to have 90-minute sets.
Yeah.
like holy crap. But then in some other scenes, like if you go to a show then you're expecting like an hour-long show, and that's fine. You know what I mean? And that's it. You pay like your 20, 40, 80, 100, however many dollars you want to pay, and you go in and you see your favorite band for an hour, and they're cool with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a whole different other thing. You know what I mean? Like that's
like there's got to be something else happening. Like at that point, you'd probably be paying almost for the branding of it.
yeah. Well,
There's
that's
that package of now I can say that I saw this.
yeah, exactly.
Like a different psychological buying trigger at that point.
It's a different game, you know.
Yeah.
Like wow, like it's just a there's just so much, you know, and like there's so much for you as an artist to do, but you have to like decide, I think. I guess like I don't know if this is going to lead or lend itself into anything that we want to talk about, but like you as an artist have to decide what it is that you want to do, and like kind of like it's like that you have to decide your brand, and like and then from there go and do your thing, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's a
Otherwise,
huge
like
part.
people don't buy it, you know?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Because if you're, if someone asks you, okay, who's your music for, and you say everyone, you need to go back to the drawing board.
Exactly.
It's gonna be so lukewarm.
I know.
Like you got to decide who do you want in the audience. If you had 200 of this type of person, that would make it the best fucking show ever.
Yeah.
Who would that person be? You know, you really got to think about that.
So important. Because like, yeah, you could have everybody at your show, but then like, if you have everybody, then nobody cares. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to like cater to everybody, then nobody's gonna care. But if you like spend your time and you go for this, like for that group of people who you know, like, you know, then other people will be like, hey, I want a piece of that, you know? Then you'll get everybody.
Yeah. Well, because then you start building the community from it. There's something that these people are standing in the audience because this music stands for something.
Yeah.
For them. And it doesn't have to be like a big momentous cause necessarily.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
in the music, it's about something.
Something. It has to be that.
Like Belays was Psycho Jungle. That was like the hilarious term that kind of came out from the, you know, our style of partying back in the day. But it became like a compass direction when we started working on the album and writing new tunes and stuff. And it was like, that's what we want the shows to be. So like the costumes and the intensity and the idea of like it being so hot in a show that it's raining from the ceiling and it's sweat and it's gross, but like people don't care, you know?
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Dude, but like that's the thing. You need that idea, you know? Or else what are you gonna develop? You know?
So I mean, going along with that, how much do you think you started with that with Afterfunk? Because it's been almost 10 years. There was probably at least some kind of thing, like a tying idea that brought you guys together to be like, this is it. You got to change it over time and it develops, right? But like,
I know that's something that we learned, and I know like so I guess when we started as a band and stuff, we were like, it just kind of happened and all this stuff kind of happened. But like, I think like a big musical theme for me was because I was like straight in school and stuff, you know, it was like bringing my like music education and like throwing it into like this like new genre that I just heard about or like just like started getting into, like funk and stuff, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, all right, that's my thing, you know? But then you play music and you're like, okay, well that's a little bit extra, like, you know what I mean? like, you know, like, okay, you know, like let's just like relax for a second, you know, like go to a couple parties, you know, like hang with and like and then all of a sudden like it becomes more about like the vibe and stuff, you know what I mean? Like what is the vibe? So like for one of our albums, Till the Sun Comes Up, is literally about that. Like, you know, like being like, it's like the night people, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's what it is. Like, the whole album starts in the evening and it's all about the night people, you know what I mean?
That one's got the zombie track on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, like,
I love that one.
it's like a jokes thing, but you know, it's like, and like, I guess over time, like now we're at a place where we're trying to like zero in specifically to a vibe before we like write an album kind of deal. You know, where like I think before it was a little more eclectic and like, you know, like it, but we the last album that we did, we got a producer and like maybe straighten things up a little bit, you know, which is like, okay, you got to like focus your ideas a little bit before, and you start to like realize how much work you have to do to make a successful thing, you know what I mean, happen, and how much premeditation goes into it, whether it's because like people get lucky as well, you know what I mean? Like let's not let, you know, we can that like, but people also work hard, you know what I mean? Like for the amount of people that get lucky, there's like 10 times as many who worked hard to get to that place, or who have somebody else who's worked hard who's on their team, you know what I mean? And like that is like not necessarily a form of luck, you know what I mean? If you're able to become successful because of somebody else's experience, and you go and you intentionally find somebody with experience, that's not luck. That's you taking matters into your own hands and using resources, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's still a form of hard work or whatever, you know what I mean? Or,
well, because
you know?
even if you get lucky, you want to be able to repeat it.
Exactly.
So it's good to know like what is it we're doing?
Exactly.
Like, what worked and why did it work, so we can find a way to keep zeroing in on that.
And taking notes on that kind of thing is so important, you know, like people let it slip by, you know, like if you're an artist out there, you let your like album sale, like you just sell a bunch of albums, like, but you don't know how many albums you sold this year. You don't know how many albums. And I'm perfect too, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm like probably one of the worst about it. Like, you know, like, it's
a lot
process, but you
it's
still
a lot
have
to take care of.
You still have to be responsible in some way about it. And if you're not directly responsible, then somebody who you trust is responsible. You know, like I have a band, you know what I mean? Like, and we share responsibility in this band. So like, you know, somebody else, if I don't have that information, somebody else has that information. You know what I mean?
Probably Jamie.
Yeah, definitely. Like, but it's important to know, you know what I mean?
You guys lucked out.
You know?
I mean, you're all workhorses in your own right, but Jamie works
that's
hard at that stuff. He's good at booking those gigs, and he's got all that.
It's crazy, you know, like I feel like as artists or as musicians, you don't this is like my thing lately. Like, you know, you go and you become a musician thinking that you're going to be an artist. You know what I mean? But like artists, like music is such a portion of artistry as a whole, or being an artist. You know, there's so many more things you have to be physically aware as well as musically aware. You know what I mean? Like there's so many things. You know, like how do you market yourself? How do you do this? All that stuff.
Yeah, the business side of it is such like this. It's
so
this
important.
thinly veiled thing that like if anybody wanted to do the research or learn about it, it's there.
It's there.
But it's so like, what?
I know.
I'm off in La La Land.
Yeah,
like,
exactly right.
Tripping on acid, following butterflies around. Like it's such like this hilarious like this is what music is. It's like, man, there's so much more work to do.
It's just, and that's one thing I guess I wish that I wonder if like your teachers had said that to you as a young musician, if you would have even cared or listened or whatever. But there would have been somebody who took something away. You know, I think that, and maybe it's because it's new and like the internet is still brand new. Like, you know, like we were in school when they started being like, hey, like, whatever. You all can have it now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, like, okay, fine, it's new. So like it's something that I think maybe the next generation has to learn, like, you know, like it's just crazy.
Well, it comes hand in hand with it now because there we just missed that opportunity where it was like you just throw up a flag and say like we're good enough, and they're like, yeah, okay, we'll help you out, we'll throw money at you. We missed that. Like it's you could just focus on the music, and then you have a team of people babysit you and take care of the numbers. And now you have to do it your own. Like it's possible, but you have so much more responsibility.
I know. But then you have all these kids who are just swimming in it. Like they are just like ready. Like, you know, like kids and their phones, like I still have trouble texting people. You know what I mean? I'm like,
you should see my baby on the phone. He does things I don't even know.
That's what I'm saying, you know what I mean? I'm like looking for the Bluetooth and the baby's just like, wow. Yeah.
He throws on his shitty baby songs on YouTube and then does this split screen thing and opens up his like games.
Hey, what?
At the same time, I'm like,
dude, you just got to make sure that the baby's first word is not Alexa.
No. I believe his first word was poop.
Oh, hey, funny guy. That's funny, yeah.
So yeah, you keeping on the hard work vein, you guys are probably one of the hardest working bands that I've had the pleasure of. Like before all the pandemic stuff, you guys were constantly on the road. It seemed like you were always zipping across the states and doing all kinds of tours and stuff. Like, was there a point when you were like, okay, we're ready to do this? Or was it like, this is just the next step and we got to kind of sink or swim with this?
We kind of just did it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, sometimes you just got to do it. And it just happened, you know what I mean? And like people wanted to see us, and so we just went to where they were, and then where they were just became further and further away. And like it was all us doing it ourselves, you know what I mean? So like it's definitely been like an interesting journey, you know? It's been good, you know? Yeah. When you say interesting, it always sounds like it's negative.
Yeah, because you could have said good.
Yeah, you know, it was good. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy, you know, because it's just changed who I am as a musician and like what I think about as like in terms of, because like you get like, it's almost like the difference between like office people and people in the field. You know what I mean? People, you know what I mean? Because like you have like people who write music and like, you know, it's fine, you know, but then there's like also like a thing of like, why do we like music? What do we like do? What's the point? Like, what's the deal? You know? And I honestly don't know if I would have been able to find the answer for myself if I wasn't out there, or at least the answer that I might have found for myself would have been different, you know? But
yeah, absolutely.
Now I have like, you know, like now I feel like, you know, and this is like very weird. This is like a very broad thing for me to say, but like music is there for us to enjoy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, that's one. Well, I guess that's two, because I guess one is music is people communicating to other people and expressing themselves to other people. Right. And like, it opens up a channel for people to express themselves back, you know, through dance or through art, you know, like people come to the show, they draw, you know what I mean? Or through nothing, you know, sometimes they just like want to sit and enjoy it, you know what I mean? But just like, these are all different reactions that might mean the same thing, like different like outlets of the same reaction.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Yes, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so like, it's like, you wonder, is music there for us to dance to? Is it there for us to like draw to? Is it there to us? No, it's like just there for us to like enjoy and to communicate with each other. You know what I mean? It's really
because how you respond to it is personal,
exactly.
but your responding to it is what matters.
Exactly. You know,
If there was no response, then that's, it's not doing its job.
yeah, exactly. You know, so like in my opinion, I guess as a writer, I think you have to like if your music follows those criteria, then good job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like then you've done something because like when you start to influence culture is when like a lot of people like your writing. But if your writing can like if your writing touches somebody and is and expresses what you want to express, you know, even if I don't like it, then I guess I'm just out of the loop. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
really out of that specific loop. You know what I mean? Like whether I want to be a part of it or not is also my prerogative or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But like
I've been very hard pressed to try and learn something from music, even if I don't like it.
yeah.
Because as a young man, very hard opinions, like
I know, right?
sucks. Fuck that. They are garbage, and it's like that's so dismissive, and it's putting a ceiling on myself as a musician because I could listen to something that I totally hate and even just get like, well, what do I not like about it?
Yeah.
How could I change that and do it something in a way that I would enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly. You know?
It's
That and it's a good thing, you know. It's a good thing. You need to have opinions, and you need to have like you need to have opinions of music. You need to have opinions on things. I think.
mm-hmm.
I strongly dislike when you go and you ask somebody you go to a restaurant or something and you ask somebody, oh, what's good, and they're like, I don't know. I'm like. You know what I mean? Like that's like the worst shit. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't have feelings.
Like you know what I mean? It's like you like something. Like just tell me. Like whatever. I'm not gonna like hate you. I might not choose what you like, but like at least I have something to start off with. If you say, oh, I like this spinach and feta omelet, and I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily like feta, then I'm gonna be like, okay, so then I'm gonna choose something else. Maybe I'll just choose some other omelet. That just makes my
so the omelet items might be good.
you know
I'll
what I
stay
mean?
away from that.
You know what I'm saying? But like, you know, at least you have like you make an informed decision because someone decided to help and they had an opinion. You know what I'm saying? But
Well, it always scares me when someone's like, oh, like, what's your favorite type of music? And they're like, oh, I don't listen to music. Or like,
yeah, that's a weird answer.
it's
Always a weird answer.
I find that very hard to believe that there's no song
yeah.
that's ever like moved you or like you don't desire or like hum something like.
I'll one up you. All right, just like this is
regale me.
I was watching this show on Netflix, Blown Up or whatever. You know, the glass blowing show.
Okay, yeah.
They have like the glass blowing show on Netflix anyway. And one of the challenges was to blow some glass or design like a piece based around food, right? And this guy was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this challenge because I don't really like food. And I was like, wait, what? And he made some like flowery shit, but I was like, this guy put in like literally zero effort. How can you say like you don't like food? Like
I don't like food. I tolerate it to survive, but
you
like
know what I'm saying? It's like, what do you do for sustenance? It's like I kind of just like put something in my mouth. It's like, well, what's your favorite one of those? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter.
even just like make a blown glass sandwich. Just fucking lie. You don't have to be so contrarian and difficult to like prove a point. I bet that guy goes to parties and is like, "Oh, the Beatles are overrated." Like,
oh my god, 100%, dude. He's one of those people. He's one of those people who doesn't like music, doesn't like food, doesn't like shit. Yo, that's some funny shit.
That was a really good Yannick-dote. I think going back to some of the purposes of music that you're talking about,
Yeah.
I was thinking about like why I like funk so much, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like it's so dependent on the groove. Everything is around that groove of like movement and feeling, and like you can't. And I think it comes from a lot of that, like the very primal like roots of music was just like rhythm,
Yeah.
creating the like a way of communicating the natural rhythms and making things happen, and people dancing and expressing themselves. So it's like when you get that groove, like it's infectious. And you
Dude.
hit that. Like that was something that always really intrigued me about it, because it was so simple. Like, why is it that James Brown can play the fucking same chord for 8.5 minutes and just yell stuff about paybacks, and it's like the best song ever?
Right?
You know? Like what?
It's like so. It's like and like when you say tribal, it's like that's exactly it. You know what I mean? It's like I like it's like unapologetically groovy. Like it's like they don't like and like that goes to like the vibe thing. You know what I mean? It's like a bunch of people. Like, you think of like a sick tribe drum circle or whatever. You're just thinking of like a bunch of people that are just like fucking like doing their thing, sweating. They're like, it doesn't even matter how hot it is, because I think my drum circle's in Africa. I guess I don't know. I don't know where your drum circle is, but it could be in Africa too. I just say that's where I picture mine. I'm just like there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, mine are cold and in like the Aral Mountains, like some Germanic tribesmen.
Oh, that's huge.
That's like real mountain. Like, what would a mountain groove like?
That's
What
like
would that
deep,
even be?
right? That's fucking powerful shit, right? But that's what I'm saying, like that's you, like that's your drum circle. Like you imagine it, like your tribal like instinct is like something like powerful, and that's funk. You know what I mean? Like that,
and that's where like my music vibe actually. It's funny that like I went immediately to that, and I was like, oh, but that's kind of how I like take music. Like I always want that bit of grit and like gravel to it. Even if it's like a smooth, funky song, there's got to be something.
There's got to be
rocky to it, Like I'm a rock guy traditionally that like got swayed and sucked into like funk and even some smooth jazz. I'm a Steely Dan guy now.
Dude, that's huge. That's a big deal, man. Steely Dan is the shit.
Let's dig deep into funk. Like let's talk about the process of funk. Let's talk about like what are some of your big funk inspirations?
Dude, right now the band that is just like killing it for me is is Ghost Note.
Ghost Note. Okay.
Yeah, it's like what's this guy's name? Sput, for the drummer. He's like he used to play on Snarky Puppy shit.
Okay.
Mono Neon, the bass player, he's just a wacko, and like a bunch of other people. The percussionist is also from Snarky Puppy, but like these guys are just like stupid groovy. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. It's almost like, yeah, it's like they're so good, like they're just so good. I don't know. It's crazy.
Like they're full-bodied good.
Yeah, like like it's like insane. It like hurts my brain sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's just like they're just so groovy, and they just play whatever, and it's just so groovy, and they just like keep playing whatever, and it's still so groovy after like 10 minutes. You're like, you're like looking at it, it's still sick. Like, oh my god,
the lessons to be learned there,
crazy,
infinite.
Dude, that one is sick. So like Ghost Note is sick. James Brown is like literally, okay, let's talk about it, I guess. So James Brown is like, he's crazy, right? Like, cause like there's like, for me, James Brown is all about that fucking rhythm guitar. You know what I mean? Like just like aside from like the sick drum group, it's always the rhythm. Like the rhythm guitar always has something to say. Like but it's always just like fucking like like it's so like muted, but so like fucking like dope. It's sick.
It's so funny. I just had like this like this picture of like the light chugging of the train, because there's like the heavy metallic kind of stuff, but then there's like
That's truth, right?
like that's the part that's really everything moving together and pushing uphill and stuff, you know?
Dude, yeah, for real. You know, it's all about that shit, you know, and James Brown has like layers of that. Like, you know, the guitar is doing this. I guess that's like a sick thing about James Brown. Is like the song is not a song. Like the song is, you know, like the song is like James Brown doesn't know shit about music apparently, but he put together the sickest band or something.
Yeah.
You know, because he had like some sort of vision. I don't even know, but whatever. You have like the bass groove, which is like a whole line to itself. Like, you know, like then you have like the fucking guitar groove, which is doing something, and then another guitar groove, which is also just like playing off of that other, like, you know, there's like sometimes two guitar parts, and then there's the fucking horn section that has their thing that's like super sick.
Fred Wesley is a beast,
and
man.
then James Brown just yells and shit. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell is this song? You know what I mean?
That ain't right. I love those Zaire 74 videos
oh my God.
of him when he comes out and does a twirl in the air, lands in the splits, and gets up and is just like,
he knows no talents, dude. Like, what the hell? Like, what does this guy have? Like, he has no, like, I don't even understand, man.
It's incredible because like it's always like a magic moment for me was in school when we were talking about James Brown in like an ear training class for whatever reason. It just like always get off topic with Darcy Hepner about something cool. And it would be like, he was talking about Bootsy's biggest lesson from James Brown. And he was like, it was always to the one, no matter what. He's like, I'm on the one. But the whole band, all the phrases, everything was about working to that one.
Yeah.
So it's like that weird kind of lopsided shape where once it gets moving, it always propels itself forward.
There's so much momentum. It's crazy.
And it's this amazing trick that like once I started thinking about that and writing stuff like that, then I could get a groove and I wasn't faking it. And it was like, oh.
That's sick. Yeah, that's a big that's a big deal, dude. That funk groove is all about the one for real. That's like, and that's like, like that's a big, that's a big James Brown lesson, you know, like he is crazy about that. And he's like all vibe.
Yeah.
I keep saying vibe.
Pure, like, 120 proof vibe.
Holy fuck. You know? So there's that, right? There's James Brown. Then there's like P-Funk and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. And like P-Funk is theater. You know what I mean? Like P-Funk takes funk and puts it in space. So that you know what I mean? Like here you have like James Brown, he's like super like, but he's like an earth motherfucker. Like, you know, he's down here. You know what I mean? And
he's talking about people stuff.
You know what I'm saying? And he's dancing with you and he's like fighting shit with you and he's like breaking shit. He's drunk off his ass. Like, like he's James Brown, you know? And then P-Funk comes around and they're like, okay, right? And they like take us up there because they have
the mothership, baby.
You know what I'm saying? They have a bunch of people. They just have like a fucking hive. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is. They have like a bunch of people and they have like sounds and they have costumes and they have lights and they like bring it to like, they just like, you know what I'm saying?
I learned a lot from there's this P-Funk documentary that was actually like on PBS, and I can't remember who voiced the it might have been Cat Williams who voiced the cartoon guy that was like narrating.
Hilarious.
And it was amazing. And they talked to all these different people, and it was just like he just made like 7 bands. Every time there was a new idea, you just start a new band with a different record company so he could get around the contract and just name it something else. And then they go on tour and it'd be like a 4-hour show and they just play all the different music. And like,
legendary.
that's unheard of.
Right?
It's so nice.
Oh my gosh, dude! Right, the world used to be wilder, right?
Oh, I know. Well, and Funkadelic as its own entity, I
yeah.
think was a really important next step,
Oh
because it's
yeah.
you
Because
lose.
Parliament was tight,
Yeah.
right? Parliament was still tight. Parliament was still like, I guess we didn't talk about like Earth, Wind, and Fire and stuff. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
we can
Fire
put
is
that
like
on the shelf
I'm
for
saying,
we'll get there next, because
you
that's
know? But like
a whole other
that has
vibe, right?
a thing, right? That has a thing. That has a place in here though, because like Parliament and like Earth, Wind, and Fire is James Brown with a band like Parliament.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Okay.
and that's
Yeah.
like, and it's like all the players are sick and all like, like it's like incredible, right? And like the one thing with like Earth, Wind, and Fire is they didn't take it too far. So then like, we'll leave it there, right?
Yeah.
So so then like yeah, you're here with like Parliament, then Funkadelic, they go out, right? Like they do a bunch of parties in a house and they record an album,
Yeah.
right? And like, and they like
That first album is wild. I
right?
love that album so much, but it's like it's not something I could always just throw on for other people.
Exactly.
I can always throw it on because I have like a really strong emotional attachment to that. But that first song, it like the whole thing is about the trip. It's about creating a trip experience very much. And it's such this beautiful combination of where the roots of funk, like James Brown's 60s, late 60s roots of funk meets this psychedelic rock that was happening in the late 60s. And it takes up the mantle of, especially once it starts moving towards other stuff like Take It to the Stage and stuff like that. That's like where Jimi Hendrix would have probably been going a bit. Like I feel like Eddie Hazel kind of was like, I got to pick that up and go with it and like continue that journey,
Yeah. That's a big deal, right? Like, like a lot of fusion is so important. And like, I feel like always has a heavy hand in how music evolves. You know what I mean? Because it's like now the funk that we think of is like, and I always think that music is cyclical. Now the funk that we think of is like strict, is like is a weird version of like funkadelic, like not like us, like but people, you know what I mean? Because like funkadelic brought it to the extreme near the end, and like disco came and raw dogged them. So you know what I mean? It was like, oh man, and so like then like at the end, it didn't look as classy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, right, we have Earth, Wind, and Fire who successfully evolved from funk to disco.
Yes.
Right?
Pretty seamlessly, too.
Pretty seamlessly, right? And they had the clothes, they had the thing, right? Which was, like, still reminiscent of funk, but it was cleaner and a little poppier. And,
like, there's that disco slick and sparkly.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing.
And they had the natural funk thing going, Like they had natural like flowy clothes and all that shit, But there's a group and like, but that left Funkadelic looking like, they had like the aesthetics just didn't work out,
No.
What I mean? Hard, And so like now that's what we think about. Like that's what people think about when they think about funk. It's just like that. But they forget that we were all dressed like that for the shows.
Yeah.
all throughout that time, we were buying that thing completely, and then somebody just changed clothes, and we're like, oh, now we got to wear.
Now
this.
we do this now.
But like I think it's coming back now, because like now we have like the Michael Jackson funk thing going on, right? Like. Because it always comes back to that friggin' funk guitar, you know what I mean? It's always about like
off the wall and Thriller were so. I mean, Wow, great points, Dan. Like, but
No,
there's
but
so much in there that was keeping on with the fusion, because it wasn't Michael releasing an album. It was Michael creating the next musical step, and then everybody copied him for 4 years, and then Thriller came out and somehow mixed what he'd cooked up with Off the Wall, and then threw rock in. You know, you get Toto to play, you throw a Eddie Van Halen solo on it, and now it's kind of a rock album.
You know,
it's like
crazy. That guy, that was a crazy idea. That's Quincy Jones being this, you know, like being like, we got to do everything. Quincy was just trying to like, he was doing that. He was like making like, he's like, this is gonna be the perfect rock song, this is a perfect pop song. We're gonna put all these things in one album, and like we're gonna teach people how to make music again, okay? Quincy Jones.
And they're like, oh, I mean, Quincy said like, so, but like, fuck, can we do this?
Crazy, man.
That's
where we're at now again, though. Like, you know, The Weeknd sounds like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
All the funk songs sound like, you know, like Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars is stealing right off my electro funk 80s playlist.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, come on. Like, it's funny, right? Even like, remember Childish Gambino put out this album however many years ago that was really sick. And this is not to say that I don't love this music. I'm just saying the lineage of this music is a little bit too obvious for my liking, I guess.
Well, it's almost like no one's doing the studying as much anymore.
Exactly. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on, we can do this. You know what I mean? But like, also, they're amazing albums. So anyway, this one Childish Gambino album, he had a blue face or something. I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember the name of it, but I know.
Yeah, you remember that album? It had like Redbone on it. It had like, that was a sick album. I love that album to death. It's actually amazing. But it was also like an insanely a funkadelic album. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was a P-Funk record. Yeah. You know, like that sounded exactly like a P-Funk record to me. If like you could have taken Childish Gambino off of it and put P-Funk in it, and I wouldn't really care. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody else had done that record and managed to pull it off, I also would think it's a great record, which is like, I don't know if it's like a Childish Gambino record, you know, but it is a great record that sounds a lot like a P-Funk record, which I love. So great. But I love Childish Gambino for other things. I love Childish Gambino for rap. Like, you know, This Is America was a cool song. I don't know all that. It got like a bunch of shit because it might have been another song or a rip off of another song. But like, you know.
Well, that's an interesting point, because here we are at this crazy point in history where not only have like a Google amount of songs been written, but they're all really easily accessible. So it's a lot easier to immediately identify influences.
Yeah.
So is it like, or I mean, it could be a combination of the two, where it's like you can hear more and take in more information, so you know, like, oh, that's where it's coming from. So it seems less like it's something new, or it's like maybe people just aren't doing the homework and things are derivative because we've hit a ceiling. Like, who knows?
I know, that's the thing, right? It's a hard deal, but I think there's some new stuff coming out. Like I said, like Ghost Note is crazy. Like, what? They're so funny. Like, it's like awesome. It's like, it's a cool thing. It's like Snarky Puppy is doing cool stuff, you know.
It's amazing that they won a Grammy.
Yeah.
We were all so pumped when they won a Grammy, because it's like, man, we've been going to see those fuckers at the Rex. Like, you know?
Yes. Like, sick, you know? So, like, good for them. They're sick. And, like, there's other singers, songwriter bands and like other pop music that's coming out that's like sick, you know. We just have to like find it. Yeah. You know? We have to like give these people props and like stop like just supporting monetarily supporting just big people. Yeah. You know? Because like, you know, people think that they support their local artists, but like they just say that they do. And
how hard was it to get people to come to shows?
You know what I'm saying? Like always, always difficult. You know what I mean? Like you always have to, like as much money as they spend to go on the shows, you spend like $1 million trying to get them to go to your show to spend $10. I'm trying to
please give us your $10.
Please let me share this amazing experience with you for $10. Please, like you know what I mean? Like that's what like whatever. You know what I mean? But
well, it's hopefully people are kind of starting to get you vote with your money.
Yeah.
So it's like if there's a band that you really like and you want them to keep doing what they're doing, you got to vote for them with your money.
It's true.
And two, I think there's a big onus on like the technology has kind of made people a bit lazy. So it's they don't dig as deep always.
People don't want to take chances anymore either, like on music.
Well, your day is filled up with so much erratic shit.
Exactly. You don't really have time to just be like, oh, maybe I'll go see this if it might be good, which is why we need money to get you to try and come to see us. But
I will say there is hope that we've had such a hard go from like this crash of the music industry and things trying to sort themselves out. And record companies are now they're doing their own thing and they're railroading everybody, but we have enough at our disposal that we can kind of sidetrack that. So I think that in the near future, we'll be hearing more and more from independent artists and people will be voting with their dollars and things, because as artists, we're finally getting the hint that like, we got to be businessmen, we got to be marketers, we got to be salesmen as well. Like we have to wear all those hats. And when you get that right, now you don't have to beg for help from somebody else to give you the worst loan in history with a record deal.
Oh my gosh. People that take advantage of you at every opportunity they get in this industry. That's why you got to know it, Have
you had some bad experiences? I mean,
we're like pretty indie, so like not none of that. Like we've been paid like, I remember one time we did a show in like Philadelphia or something, and like they paid us $20. Literally, they paid us $20. I'm just like, oh man, I don't remember if I got angry or if we flipped or whatever, but it's like, are you kidding me? Like there were 8 of us in the band at the time, and they just $20. I was like, what the shit are you doing right now? And you look at somebody like this, I was like, what, 21 at the time. You look at a 21-year-old who came from Canada, you give him $20 for
Here you go.
Like, it's like, okay, well, that was a fucking rough.
The exchange rate's pretty strong right now.
Like saved this for years. Oh my gosh. But you know what I'm saying? Like we haven't had like we've had like experiences and stuff where people don't pay you and things, but like we haven't had like that rough of a go with things. Like we bounced around from agency to agency, but like we generally take things into our own hands, you know what I mean? We take matters into our own hands, so whether that's been good or bad for us, well, it's been mostly good.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say it seems like it's working. Like,
that's what I'm saying, but like, it's just like, I don't think we've like really like hit any like hard thing like that. You know what I mean? Like the one difficulty we might have is with our name and like with our image or whatever. So like, but I don't think our name is going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. It's not really that. It's not been that crazy for us. I think it's harder for individual artists, because like I said before, like I have a team, like we have a band,
Yeah.
I mean, like, so like, there's no way, like, like if something goes back, if something goes wrong, then like, it'll be like, oh, I got to hold somebody back because they're going to fight somebody for it. I'm going to fight somebody for something. You know what I'm saying? Or like, so like, it's like, it's usually like it's nice to have that as well. You know, a team is so important. You know, but I think it's hard for an individual because, like, you know, like an independent artist, like an individual artist, because it's just one person. You know what I mean? And like you have to you have to trust somebody else with a lot of things if you're going to have a team. You know what I mean? That's like an interesting relationship. You know, that's a hard relationship to find. You know what I mean? If you're not already working your ass off and know all the stuff. You know what I mean? Either that's like your mom, your dad, your lover. You know, I don't know. You know what I mean? But like that's usually like if you don't know what you're doing, then that's who's going to end up doing that stuff for you if they really care or if they don't care. You know what I mean? Like that's like, you know, or if they're taking advantage. You know what I'm saying? You got to be careful if it's just one person. But if you have a team, then you have a team. You know what I mean? There's mistakes that I would have made that because I in this band I didn't make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, fine.
Team's important for that kind of support. And I mean, like, you know, how many times when you hit a wall, like personally or emotionally, and the team carries you through.
100%.
Like
that's the marathon.
It would have been so much harder if it was just me, because who's supposed to catch me when I fucking fall?
Exactly.
I fall a lot. I'm clumsy. I don't tie my shoes because fuck that. It's a conspiracy by Big Shoe to just try and sell more shoelaces.
That's why you need the Velcro shoes.
Yeah.
Shoes that do themselves up.
There was a thing where they were like, stop calling it Velcro. Only Velcro brand is Velcro.
I know. I remember that. Like,
Hook and hoop fasteners.
They lost that war real quick.
Which is too bad because they are right.
I know they are right.
Too late. Like everyone already says it.
They're just too successful with their name, and now no one buys their shit. But everybody
should have started that fight like 100 years ago.
No, they should. But mom said, I feel like all your sisters are using it now. Look at it. Come on, bro.
I'm really looking forward to the time when I get to see you guys on stage again. It's
and you, man. Like it'll be. Are you
so
playing?
I've got. It's just me right now. The Laser Monk thing is just me in this office here. I've got like all my music stuff ready to go, and just like I've been writing new things. That song that I put out was just like the first thing that came out, and I just worked and finished it and was like, okay, so I know I can do it. Which was a lot of that process of like, I always had a band, and it wasn't like, it was before music school the last time that I had that kind of like, you know, it was me preparing for music school for a year, and I had like a Tascam digital 8-track. So I just write and record stuff all the time. And then it was always bands. So like losing that like support thing where it was like everybody's tight behind me and I can just be Dan and wear stupid costumes and like dress up like a cat and feed people grilled cheese from the stage and shit, like, you know. So it's a reinvention, and it's like you know, having a hiatus with the baby was necessary, but it was also, I needed to find what I wanted to do after the belays, because that was such a huge part of my life for so long. So it was like having that team, and everything was that. The community was that. The friends were that. So it was like losing a lot of that, and then going into seclusion to be dad.
Yeah, it's
that
a hard.
Became my new identity. So then I was like, wait, who the fuck am I?
That's big.
Yeah.
And now you can include your children in your journey, and like you'll just grow with your kid, and like that's gonna be a crazy thing.
It's really cool to see.
A really exciting chapter.
Yeah, it's cool to see how interested he is in music. like from the start. Like he reacts instantly to it. He's got certain songs that he's like, put that shit on repeat.
I feel like parents who share music with their kids and like they have a very special relationship. You know what I mean? Like that is like it's this very special thing. If you know, and like if you are able to play together, you know, oh man, like
yeah, no pressure. I'm not gonna Tiger Woods the kid or anything, but like I'm
make him play. Tape
a guitar to his hand.
You know what I'm saying? Like start him now. Like you'll just.
Daddy, I'm tired.
Read like dad. You know. This is an E.
Yeah. I'll just like. No, that was too weird. I was gonna finger extensions, just like put them in.
Like you gotta learn.
So when we're talking about mutilating children's fingers, I think that's probably the end of the interview. But
I think so.
No, honestly, these have been really exciting for me. They've been really fun for me, and I hope
this is a sick thing, dude. This is awesome.
Well, because I just want to really leverage all these awesome contacts that I've been able to have over the time, and I get to have a really in-depth conversation about music with the people
I like to talk about it too.
Yeah. Well, I was saying with Bruder, after the episode, it was really cool because these are topics that we might hit one or two in passing every once in a while, but to just like dedicate an hour to just be like,
this is nice.
Let's go and talk about it and see where it goes. And there's always really interesting stuff that comes out because the conversations are pretty personalized. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
So it's like I tick off a few things that I want to get out, but the most is like, let's just have a conversation. And I think that's probably where people will learn the most.
Yeah. That's chill, dude. I love it.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And where do you want to send some eyes and ears?
Afterfunk.ca is a good place to check out. And then also check out our Facebook and our Instagram and our Spotify especially.
All Afterfunk, right? No added words.
No added words, no secret messages. Just
pick up that album Santa Barbara because it's a fucking steamed ice.
It's an orange square.
Yeah, and I was like ready to be like, so you got a new album out, blah blah blah. It came out a year ago.
Yeah, dude, I
know.
know.
A year ago.
Time flies, dude.
Well, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate
it. Talk to you, man. It's good to see your face, and I'm happy you're doing well. And like, say hello to everybody, dude, and take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too, man. Be well.
Be well, dude.
Hello, we are back. It's always nice to be able to reconnect with old friends and chat about this stuff, and a really cool opportunity that I get to do this, and I can only hope that any of you out there are able to cultivate a community of really awesome, diverse people with an artistic goal that kind of brings them all together. Because there's so many different ways that those kinds of connections pan out. I mean, I get to do a talk show with a bunch of my friends and hopefully, you know, meet some of my heroes, like fingers crossed if this gets out there far enough. But even just beyond that, there's a whole list of people that I could drop a message to and be like, hey, I got a new tune. I've got you in mind for this. Or like, hey, I'm working on a project. You're really good at this. Maybe you could help me out. And, you know, there's no obstacle that couldn't be tackled in some way. If I couldn't figure it out, I know that somebody out there definitely could. And that's because of this musical community. So you really need to take as much energy and time into putting together a community of people and getting in with a community, because you never know when you're going to need somebody to help you make something way more awesome with what they do. Simple as that. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about writing melodies. This is the fundamentals that every musician and songwriter needs to know about writing better melodies. So fundamental number 1, map out chord tones. So whether you're starting with just a melody or a chord progression idea, identifying the chord tones or potential chord tones can be a massive, massive help. If you know the notes in the chord that you will be playing underneath each part of the melody, you can gain more insight into how those notes will play off of each other, add more tension, or create a stronger resolution. This will allow you to unify the melody and the chord progression. Make them become more one thing. Move them together. Not just one slapped together with the other with duct tape or something. And you've probably written songs where you're like, it feels like something's missing. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that it doesn't feel like a complete song. It feels like parts. So it may take a bit of time, but looking for these hidden notes in your melodies can give you the option to adjust them in ways to benefit the song. If you're starting with a melody first before a chord progression, remember that chords will usually change at the beginning of a new bar. So getting an idea of where a few chords could potentially be placed can put you on the right path to which ones might be placed there based on what melody notes are being used at the time. Even this doesn't have to be set in stone, but it can be a really great starting point to use as a framework to play around with and change and adjust and adapt after the fact. So, fundamental number 2, identify target notes. So planning where you are going helps you aim in a specific direction and make sure that you actually get there. This seems really simple, but it's also a simple thing to forget when you're sitting down to conjure a masterpiece from thin air, right? This is helpful in developing a melodic idea, adding embellishment, and providing yourself with more control over where your song actually goes. So the idea here is to look ahead. Identify some of these juicy notes that you could choose in a particular situation. Maybe there's a note in the idea you were playing around with, or perhaps you know a certain note would sound really amazing over a certain chord change. So it is important to remember that a target note may not be a chord tone. So while a chord tone played in the melody will fit really nicely over the chord that's being played, you should be experimenting with different non-chord tones, because this can have a whole crazy range of effects, from beautiful to haunting to downright nasty. And when you know the important goal points to hit, you can now plan to approach them in the most fitting way possible, to the benefit of the song as a whole, to the listener, and to yourself, by improving your writing skills to become more deliberate with your choices. And fundamental number 3, find points of emphasis within the melody. So think of these sentences: that I am speaking. Consciously think about the emphasis that I am placing on certain words and syllables. So how you choose to do this creates context, makes certain points easier to understand, and ultimately makes your voice far more interesting to listen to, because it's almost musical. We do this almost unconsciously when talking. So why not adapt this to melody writing or actual music? When you find points of interest or a really juicy note within a melody, it should be emphasized. Like the lighting or positioning of a shot in a movie scene, it helps to make this choice more deliberate by expressing its importance to the audience. You can go from a kindergarten recorder rendition of hot cross buns to musically crafting a message to have the most possible impact within the song. Taking a moment to sing your melody, even if there are no words, or play it on your instrument. Really focus on how you approach each note and the focus that you give it. You will start to hear in your mind the notes within the melody that are asking to stand out more. So do them a favor and give them a platform. Make sure that the chords or the voicings underneath don't clash too much and diminish the effect of these notes. Or perhaps make them clash more if tension is the desired effect. Try to make the surrounding notes around these notes that need to be emphasized more like surrounding notes. These are notes that are setting up the more important notes that need to be emphasized. So they are more or less a means to an end and a stepping stone to these knockout punches that you can deliver when you set them up properly. So that brings us to the theory portion of the show. We're going to talk about a really important subject that a lot of people have been asking about. And it's an interesting one, it's an important one, and I got to admit, I like making the slides for these. It's a lot of work, but it's kind of fun, and the more that I make, the more easy it will be to take these different things from each episode and use them in other situations. So the nerd in me is like, I'm building up a database. So let's get to it. We have the circle of fifths and the circle of fourths. So we've talked about scale degrees in a major scale, how we set this system up. There's 8 notes. You give a number to each of these notes. That kind of identifies the interval that it is, the distance it is from the root to that specific note. So we know that obviously the 1 and the 8, the root or the octave, those set up the key center, and the 5 helps to kind of act as a foundation. They can lean on this 5, and this is, boom, concrete, platform to stand on. Everything else is able to move pretty fluidly around this because this is a strong interval foundation. 1 to 5 to the octave. So let's talk about this interval of a perfect fifth. It has the name perfect. The way that 2 notes spaced this fifth interval apart, the way their sound vibrates together fits. So the way these notes work together in this interval also fits. So if we start with a C and we play a G, which is a perfect fifth away, that's a solid interval. Now, an interesting thing that happens is when you play a G and go up to a C. Because the previous instance was like a 1 to 5, but now we have, instead of C to G, we have G to C. Same notes, but coming from a different angle. And that creates a perfect fourth. So it's weird that whether you're going up or down, or which note you're coming from, you're hitting the same notes, but you're getting a different interval. So they're closely related and in a way interchangeable. A perfect fourth and a perfect fifth. So let's take a little trip. And we're going to travel along the keyboard, only moving by an interval of a perfect fifth. So we start with C. We hop up a fifth to G. D is next. Then we get to A, E, B, F sharp, and C sharp. Now what's really interesting, if you don't already know, is that when we're determining the key signatures, like what key a song is in, this right here is all the keys that have sharps in them. C has 0, G has 1, D has 2 sharps, A has 3, E has 4, B has 5, F sharp has 6, and C sharp has all 7 notes sharp. So how interesting is this that we start on C, we move up a fifth, and it's the order of sharps, sharp keys. We move up, we raise one more note in the key. And here's another mind-blowing fact. The next note that gets raised is also determined by this order. How about that? So now let's clear off the keyboard. Bye-bye, notes. Now let's talk about a perfect fourth interval. And let's take a little trip along the keyboard, moving in an interval of a perfect fourth. So we've got C, then F, then B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and finally C flat. Same thing as with moving with perfect fifths, but when you move a perfect fourth away, these are all of the keys that have flats in them. All of the key signatures with flats. Starting with C, we have 0 flats. F has 1, B flat has 2, E flat has 3, A flat has 4, D flat has 5, G flat has 6, and C flat has 7 flats. All the notes are flat. So this is the order of flat keys, and also the order in which notes are affected when you lower them. So we go from moving in a perfect fifth, and that sets up this system for raising one note at a time by cycling around in these key signatures. And the same thing happens when we move in a fourth. We're lowering one note at a time with these key signatures. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are going completely apeshit and saying, but Dan, what is going on here? Why is there a C flat? It's a B. What, bud? What the fuck? What are you doing? And you're right. That is a really ridiculous thing. So let's focus on this for a second. Why is this happening? Something really cruel in music theory. It's called enharmonic spelling, where some notes are more than one note. Just because how things are written, you don't have to worry too much about it. We know that the black keys on a piano are sharp if a note is being raised, or flat if a note is being lowered. So if we look at B and C flat, that's the same note, right? So if we look at F sharp, a fifth away from B, or G flat, which is a fifth down from C flat, that's the same note. That's the same key on the keyboard there. And same thing with C sharp and D flat. That's the same note on the same key on the keyboard. So what if we did a little experiment? If we move in perfect fifths this way, we get to B, which we've already determined is the same as C flat. And now we're moving perfect fifths this way. C flat, G flat, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, and back to C. How interesting. Same thing with perfect fourths. If we move from C to F on and on and on, we get to D flat. That's the same note as C sharp. Same key on the keyboard. So we go all the way up C to F to B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, which is also C sharp. So then C sharp to F sharp to B to E to A to D to G, all the way back to C, moving in an interval of a perfect fourth. Pretty wild. It's almost like it's cyclical, like it was some kind of a circle. Boom. We have, starting from C, moving by intervals of a perfect fifth around this shiny yellow circle. Sorry, red. I was looking at the letters. Let's throw those perfect fourths on there, starting from C, going the other direction. And some of those notes, as we just talked about, they overlap. So if you start from C and go clockwise around in an interval of a fifth, you can hit every single note, every single key, and start back at C again. You've completed a full cycle. Same thing if you move from C, going to F to B flat, in intervals of a fourth, you go all the way around, you get to D flat. It's the same as C sharp, F sharp, B, E, A, D, G. You're back at C. So this is an insane concept from music theory. The way that you choose a solid, stable interval that is so foundational to making a scale work and making a chord solid. And when you take that interval and you move in a set mathematical pattern, it sets up the whole system for how we use tonal harmony. This determines what notes are played in which keys, which is insane. So knowing that it's such a strong thing, you can use this as chord movement as well for progressions. There are so many chord progressions that use the cycle of fifths or the cycle of fourths. And if you were to go and play these notes, you would recognize it immediately. Pachelbel's canon in D. Everybody knows that one. So a big part of how chord progressions work is based on the cycle of fifths and the cycle of fourths. And a really interesting thing is that if you play around with this a little bit, you can move from all 12 keys and get back where you started. Jazz songs do it all the time. That's why this is one of the first lessons that they really, try and ingrain in your head in music school. Because you see that cycle coming, you know the pattern. So you don't have to think about it as 30 chords because you know where it's going. And it becomes one long phrase that you can manipulate. So the cycle of fourths is really, really crazy, really, really interesting, and memorize it. Do yourself a favor and study the circle of fifths, circle of fourths. Get that under your nose. I don't know where you put it, but this will help you in remembering so many aspects of music. You'd be doing yourself a disservice not learning about it now that you know it exists. Oops, too soon. This one. So now it's record time. What are we going to talk about today? Have I got a doozy for you? Possibly my favorite Beatles album, Revolver. 1966, this album came out. This was a transition period for the Beatles. As you can tell from the insanely trippy album cover. Now, people often misidentify Sgt. Pepper as the acid album for the Beatles because it was far more famous. This is the acid album. John Lennon John Lennon even said as much. Often, there was a lot of controversy around the time that this album came out in 1966. You may have heard about when John Lennon was being asked about the fame of the Beatles, and he made a comment about how it was ridiculous, and it was like people thought they were bigger than Jesus. So the entire United States of America, who has a bit of a religious zeal problem and also an aversion to poetic devices like a simile, a comparison using two things, linking them together with like or as, people went apeshit. There were Beatles burnings. You can look this up. People went into the streets, organized events by radio stations and churches, and they started a big fire in all these towns and would throw Beatles records in. This album was bought out from so many record stores to be destroyed symbolically. USA, USA, USA. But I digress. So a lot of people didn't necessarily know about this album at the time, but it was one of their greatest efforts and probably some of the biggest strides, the most influential. This set off the true psychedelic movement. It was happening, it was gaining root in 1965, and you could hear it happening on their previous album, Rubber Soul. The thing about this was John and George were out for tea and drinks with their dentist friend, who they called Dr. Robert, who has a song named after him on this album, and he spiked their tea with acid. So that was their first trip. So they were running around, being crazy, driving around in a van, and he was looking out the window. That might have been part of the inspiration for Yellow Submarine, also on this album. So they were tripped out, man, and they loved acid. And they were trying to get the rest of the Beatles in on it. They wanted Paul to take the acid, and he refused. He wasn't ready to do it yet. So there marks a huge split that never really got healed over between the Beatles, because George and John were experimenting with LSD, and their songwriting progressed leaps and bounds. I am willing to say that they may have better songs than McCartney on this one, although one of my favorite McCartney songs is on here, For No One. I love that song. But what George and John were doing with their music was way more experimental, but in such a hugely influential way. So naturally, Paul did the Paul thing and read a bunch of, books on like the acceptance of dying and like ego death, and went and did acid by himself and whatever, But they had a party in California. They rented a mansion, and they wanted to get a bunch of famous people together and just have a big crazy acid party. So if anybody knows what that's like, you don't always control what's going to happen. You can't just say, I'm going to eat acid at a party and everything's going to be fine. So they ended up cornered in the backyard, John and George, by who was it? It was like Paul Newman or Peter Fonda, some like famous actor from that time cornered them in the back and was wasted on like whiskey or something, and he was just that drunk belligerent guy at the party who wouldn't stop going on about this story about how they had a near-death experience as a child. They were like, I was dead, I know what it's like to be dead. And they were just like trapped because they're tripping balls and they couldn't be like, fuck off, you're ruining the mood, because they were just melting. So there's a really great song on here that's called She Said, written by John, and the lyrics are inspired by these things that just kept being cyclical. And it's awesome because she said, you know, that's cyclical. And it's that feeling of getting tripping balls, getting caught in almost a time loop. You know, she said, you don't understand what I've said. I said, no, 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 you're wrong, when I was a boy. And the rhythmic push on that section of the song really is expressing that instance, that feeling. It's amazing. And I mean, there's a lot of other really cool songs on here, but this is my record pick for today. If you don't know, now you know. Please go check it out. And if you don't like it, at least try and figure out some stuff and learn from it. Even the history of this album alone is worth just reading about. So that is my suggestion for this week. 1966, The Beatles, Revolver. And look at that album cover. Meticulously cut out pictures coming out of their hand-drawn heads. It looks so fucked. And the eyes are real. And the lips, like it's so unnerving and weird, and definitely the Acid album. So now it's picture time. It's picture time. Sorry, Nicholas Pickles from Video and Arcade Top 10. I stole your bit.
All right.
Oh, we're not playing that again. We're not playing that again. All right. So this first picture is a nice close-up of a pedal I picked up a while ago. It is a preamp modeled after the Neve 1070 console, or the preamp from the Neve 1070 console. This was a really important mixing and recording console from the 70s. It just, something about the tube circuitry that was used. Motherfuckers starting their cars. Something about the tube circuitry that was used in these consoles just made this incredible tone that's so signature that you may not realize some of the most important recordings were done on these consoles. So many people have recorded on these consoles. People from years later sought out consoles to record on. We selected the studio for mixing our album, Weaponized Magic, back in the day, because they had a Neve console. And Phil Spencer suggested it, and we went for it, and it really gave a darker sound, but a more warm sound, and it kind of balanced out a lot of in the box processing that would happen. It was a really, really good choice. So if you're interested in gear at all, look up that console. Jimmy Page recorded the fuzz guitar tone from Black Dog on that console. And on the other end of the spectrum, Nile Rodgers, the guitarist from Chic, he recorded his guitar tone from these consoles. And the big thing is that both guitarists plugged directly into the console and got the sound of the board. Now you think of Les Freaks, c'est chic, and you think of that guitar part that's just going to town. But you think, okay, same board, got the fuzz sound for Black Dog. So it's the versatility, but there's just this warm tube characteristic. So when I found out about this pedal as a preamp, when I was looking for stuff that I wanted to put together my home studio with, this was a no-brainer. I love this pedal. Even just the design of it, it looks really cool. Just, it's so simple, but just that white with red, blue, a little bit of yellow there, and then that awesome depiction of the console. So it's like a little reminder, you know, you pray to that console that your recording is going to go well and sound amazing. And the sounds are incredible. I love this. You can use it as a guitar pedal, put it in your pedal chain, or you can use it as a preamp to get, you know, like a DI box. You plug your bass into it, or you have vocals go into it, and it's like running through the console because it's got the same circuitry, and then into your recording flow. So you're able to get a lot of really awesome warm tones, and that was a big part of why I picked it. I didn't want, if I was going to be recording digitally, I didn't want to lose analog tone. So doubling up with my tube amp and having this bring out more of that character before it goes in to the computer, it just night and day difference. And it's not, when you're messing with recording and sound like that, you don't always want the change when it's on to be super noticeable, but you want it to be noticeable when you take it off. So when I was first setting up some tones for my guitar, that's exactly what happened. I was like, this is a really nice full sound. It's not like overly, you know, in my face. But when I turned the pedal off, somehow the trainer sounds so thin. And that's not what my tube amp, that's not what I bought the tube amp for. It doesn't sound thin, but it was thin by comparison. So there's a lot that you can do with your sound when you start learning about gear. Gear is important. You don't want to rely on the gear, but you want those subtle tweaks to just bring out so much more character in your music. That's really important. So, next picture. I don't know why, but things randomly get moved around. There we go. Here's a cute little fun way to scare a musician. Tell them good luck on the concert tonight on a day that they don't have a concert. For extra fun, say it's a solo. It's mean. It's a mean thing to do. But if anyone's ever been in that situation where they suddenly realize, like, oh, good luck on the gig tonight. What? I thought that was tomorrow. that feeling of absolute dread of being underprepared for a show or a performance. Even if you are prepared, if you are able to just get up and play and knock them dead, when you have that moment of I have to play tonight, when you're not ready, it's shocking and it's terrifying, even if it's like just a second. And that's because there's a lot of mental preparation that has to go in to getting yourself ready to perform. Maybe you haven't really thought about this, or maybe you're a non-musician who might pester a loved one to just pick up their instrument and play all the time at like family gatherings or a barbecue or whatever. Sometimes there is a lot more that goes into it, and if you don't have the energy ready and worked up, you just don't feel ready. Even if the skill is there and you can play something really simple and whatever and knock it out, sometimes there's no gas in the tank. So you're just not ready to travel. And like, that's okay. From one musician to all those musicians out there who have maybe felt guilty when they're put on the spot like that, do not feel guilty. If somebody wants to come to your party and while they're scarfing down half a hot dog and slugging back a Coors Light, you interrupt them and say, hey man, you're a plumber. Do you want to come take a look at my pipes and maybe like fit some shit, maybe install a toilet while you're at it since you're here? Like, their immediate answer, I mean, they might be polite and be like, sure, I'll take a look, but their immediate answer is, fuck, like, I just want to chill out. That's work. I want to relax. It's the same thing, man. Like, so don't feel guilty about not being ready to perform on a dime. You're not a monkey. You're not the vending monkey. So just be cool. Give yourself permission to take a day off. And if somebody asks you to play, be polite about it. But if you don't feel like it, don't feel like you have to do it. So here is a very old photo of me as a baby. And that's my grandpa Bobby. And I love this photo for a couple reasons. One, because that's how I remember seeing my grandpa. Still got his tie and half days from a nap after a long day of work. But on that couch and hanging out, and we used to watch old war movies together, and he would tell me all kinds of crazy stories and everything. And another reason why I love this photo is because me as a baby looks a lot like my son does. He's probably only a little bit older than I was in this picture when it was taken. So I love this picture because there was a really rough time in my life when I dropped out of college after the first semester, and I came home and I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was really weird and scary, and I didn't want to go places because people would ask. I didn't want to go to family events or gatherings because people would probe and be like, oh, so how's it going? How's school? What? You're not in school? What's wrong? What happened? Like, all these prying questions. They're interested because they care about you, but it also sucks because you don't want to think about it and you don't want to talk about it. And unknowingly, some of the things that they say might be backhanded. So I was really depressed and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so one day my grandpa came over to fix my mom's faucet. Her sink was going apeshit. So he came over with his bag of tools and he found me downstairs and was like, Dan, Mac. He used to call me Mac. And be like, Mac, come on, help me with this. And we sat and we chatted, and he started asking me all kinds of questions, but not in a rude way, like just talking about music and everything. And he knew how into it I was, and he was kind of pressing me on it. And he's like, well, why don't you go for it? And you know, I wanted to, but there was a lot that was holding me back. And he was like, well, like, is that the thing you want to do? Is that the thing that you love? I was like, well, yeah. He's like, then do it. Don't worry about anybody else. Don't worry about, you know, what's going to come of this. If this is what you love, if this is your passion, then go chase it. Go get it. So that was a huge push. He gave me permission to give myself permission to think that it was okay to go and study music and pursue music, to be an artist, to be a musician. And that was a really big moment and an important moment. And, you know, there's a lot of times when I'm performing or when I'm listening to some recordings, and I think about him, and I hope that he hears the music. I hope that he hears what I've done with my life, you know? I think he would be proud, and I always think about that. So the next one, this is a little snippet from music school. When I did get in, second year, I took jazz arranging, and that is a heavy, heavy, heavy course. There are so many things that you have to consider when doing an arrangement. And this was our final project. We had to write for a rhythm section and 5 horns. So I chose to do an arrangement of Michelle by the Beatles, obviously, because I'm a bit obsessed. And so this is page 10 of 11. And as you can see there, I did pretty well, 46 out of 50. Probably got some bonus marks because the teacher was also a Beatles nut, Darcy Hepner. But, you know, this is how an arrangement works. You get your main ideas and you figure out how you're gonna, you know, support the melody. The melody is important. But there's all these different instruments playing, and they're in different ranges. So you have to think about where those ranges settle and how that's gonna carry the note. So different combinations of instruments might make it a wiser choice at that point in the arrangement. But as you can see here, you have these long pieces of paper and you can see the movement from bar to bar, and it's all the instruments at the same time. So you get a really good idea visually at what is happening, and you can start to see, well, this is a little sparse, but it needs to have more impact, so you can start to add more things. But here's the kicker. Every person in the band needs sheet music. So these are all the different parts: drums, bass, piano, guitar, trombone, baritone sax, tenor sax, alto sax, and trumpet. And not all these are written in the same key. Transposing instruments are a real thing, in case you didn't know. So if I write something in concert for a guitar and I want a trumpet to play the same thing, I have to transpose it so the trumpet plays in the same key. It's wild. It's insane that this is something that happens, but that's music, and that's something that you have to learn and get really good at. So there's the arrangement portion where you write everything in, but you don't turn in your project to the teacher. You first turn it in to the teacher's band. And your project is played live on the due date. And if there's a mistake, it's not the musicians, it's you. So that was one of the craziest things I've ever had to do up to that point, by a wide margin. And I learned so much about arranging, obviously, but about songwriting and musicality and how to support a melody and how to approach important chord changes or important notes. And there's just so much that you have to think about that goes beyond the song. The song was already written. So this was me taking that road map of a song and making it my own arrangement. Now you can do this with your songs. You should do this with your songs. You write a song, the song is done. Cool, that's the song. Now, how are we gonna make it bigger? How are we gonna add to it? How are we gonna make it the best possible version of this song? That is something you need to be considering. And finally, we have a quote from ancient Greek philosopher, student of Socrates, the man Plato himself. Music gives a soul to the universe,
Wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. A heavy quote from a heavy thinker. This guy wrote The Allegory of the Cave, where he posits that a man who has been living in the darkness of a cave his entire life might be afraid to leave that cave because it's the unknown. It's scary. Whereas we would look at him living in a cave and be like, that's awful. He's in a dark, smelly cave. That shit sucks. He's got to get out here. And you're both afraid of the life that you are not aware of or understanding. So thinking about that and coming back to this quote, imagine somehow life before music. I mean, you would probably think that everything's all right. And then you hear music for the first time. What would that be like? I know I saw it in my baby when we put on records, and like the first time he like got it, and watching his head whip around on his neck when I believe it was Mr. Moonlight, or actually maybe I'm a Loser, a Beatles song, lots of really strong vocal harmonies, and that caught his attention. And his eyes kind of welled up, but he had this look on his face. Now I started crying because it was beautiful. And I feel like this quote really encapsulates that moment of transition from no music to music, being aware of music around you, giving soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, taking you from one place to another and thinking inescapably complex or emotional things. Life to everything. We talked about that a bit last week with the music of life, the music of the universe, the natural music, the natural rhythm of everything. I just thought that was a really heavy quote. I really like it. So that takes us to the end of the content for this week. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Next week, we've got some tasty treats for you. We're going to have Nick Zyla, former Edmontonian, former Hamiltonian, a good friend. I hope to see him again soon. It was really nice talking with him. Nick Zyla will be our special guest, creeping up on nearly 200 albums put together. What have you done this week, huh? He's probably written an album. Just saying. I want to thank Mr. Yanick Allwood of Afterfunk for joining me and talking about the history and evolution of funk. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of this community and, you know, wanting to be a part of something bigger than yourself. Taking that mantle of becoming a musician and taking it seriously. The fact that you're here right now means that you want to change, you want to get better, and you want to make things better for other people. You want to create change for other people with your music, like other people's music has done for you. That is a big deal. That is important. That is your mission. And my mission is to make sure that all of you succeed with yours. So, with that being said, I'm Dan Weiss. Get out there, and create the music that you hear in your head. We'll see you next week.